Hi, welcome. It's Imogen here today with Body Intelligence, and I am here with my friend and guest again, Shay Seaborne, who is a trauma awareness activist. This is a continuation of our conversations around trauma and stress and neuroscience and the Alexander technique and my particular work, body intelligence, and how various concepts and all sorts of things weave in. And we've privately got very excited about them all. And Shay's made loads of connections to stuff that she's learning with, and has learned with me, to stuff she's learned about the neuroscience and neurobiology of trauma. I hope I've explained that well enough, Shay. And today we're going to talk about the importance of cultivating a sense of safety in yourself, and how, basically how this is really kind of vital in our ability and path to managing stress and healing from trauma. So Shay, welcome again. Yeah, so I said it was vital. Why do we need to feel safe?
It's a biological imperative. It's the basis for a good life. When we can feel safe, we can, with ourselves and in our environment, we can feel safe with others and connect as we are biologically designed. We cannot be connected with others while we are protecting ourselves from them.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And I'm also just thinking about my own work and how it's a question for you. I think it works both ways a little bit. So one, you need to feel safe to be able to be more open and expansive and more at ease in yourself. And learning ways to be more open and expansive and at ease in yourself can help you feel a bit safer. Would that be correct?
Yeah. One of those virtuous cycles of neurobiology.
Yeah. So I mean, that kind of is the big benefit, but what are specific benefits to having this sense of safety in yourself?
Well, you can function better as a human being.
Yeah.
and not just function as in, hack hack your whole life so you're productive. No, function as in, I can take care of myself. I can interact with people appropriately. And it gives you greater access to the very human part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is limited when you're on flight or fight. When you're on red alert, you don't have access to that part of your brain.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the kind of opposite of feeling safe is sort of that fight or flight, that red alert. And that is stress. Yeah. And there's loads of reasons why it's helpful and beneficial to reduce our stress, health outcomes, quality of life, how good you feel in yourself, and
our relationships with other people.
Yeah.
When you're on red alert, it's like you had a car accident, and and since then, every time you drive, you're afraid there's going to be another car accident. And, normally that doesn't happen with, we all have an accident now and then. And if it's not, major, we go on and we kind of forget about it. We might be extra careful for a while, but we go back to having an otherwise normal life. But when it's a traumatic event, our nervous system may expect that to happen. And so we're basically experiencing that. Like every time we see a car that reminds us of that car that T-boned us, we're having that experience again. And that's really bad for the nervous system, for the whole body, because it floods the body with cortisol and other stress hormones that the body is not designed to sustain for long periods of time, and it causes damage to everything, and that's the source of chronic disease.
Yeah, I think that's what I was talking about. You explained it much better, about the health outcomes. I've lost my train of thought. Let me look at my notes. So what happens, I guess you kind of described it, what happens when we don't feel safe. But can you say that example with the car and the car accident, and that it's been traumatic and you're in this red alert stress state around driving or seeing cars even, or whatever. Can you cultivate a sense of safety to in yourself to lower that response? I mean,
yes,
I hope so. You're not necessarily stuck in that for life.
No, yeah. that would be a terrible kind of hell, and that would be living in trauma, and you would see everything through that lens, and any potential car, or human, if it was a human that caused your pain, could be dangerous, and that's going to change how you live, how you relate to them, how you feel about your place in the world. It's really a heavy duty impact. So yeah, it's really important to cultivate a feeling of safety, especially when you've had such trauma and maybe never had a sense of safety. If it was developmental trauma, you may never have known what it's like to feel safe, truly safe. And that's my case. And yet I've developed some sense of safety. It's getting better. You might remember our first visit because it was kind of wackadoodle.
That wasn't the word I would have used, but
yeah,
no, it was. I remember it quite clearly, and even then, you were able to. We weren't calling it safety; we were calling it ease.
Yes.
But I think there's a relationship between the two. They're not exactly the same. But even in that first session, you were able to access a little bit more than you thought was there.
Yes. For me, it's not safe to relax, to notice ease, to relax enough to notice ease, to go off the hypervigilance. And yet, we found that one little spot right there.
And then you found a few more. Yes,
that was such a surprise to me. It was just so lovely. I never expected I could, notice any ease in my body after everything it's been through. And here, 3.5 years later, quite a transformation in my inner experience, and that affects my relationships and my brain function.
Yeah. I'm thinking, I just wanted to mention that it's not like we're aiming to live a life that's just totally this peaceful ease plateau, as lovely as that might be a little bit boring, but we're supposed to have stress, and it can stimulate us to do things, but the problem is when we stay up here and we've not got no capacity to modulate back and forth, and our base, we don't have this kind of nice, easy baseline home to come back to.
Yes.
We're just sort of staying up here.
Yes, it's a terrible condition, really painful and disorienting, and it really makes your life miserable, because when you're focused on all the danger, you can't focus on beauty, joy, connection, love, tenderness, poetry, music. You lose your capacity to appreciate those, as only, as far as we know, human beings can appreciate them, because you're losing really access to part of your humanness.
So I'm thinking about, we've kind of talked about stress and being able to come back to ease, but sometimes, quite often in life, we have a situation that we either find ourselves in or that we might choose to, that could even be like going on a Facebook Live might not feel safe, or, you know, presenting your work somewhere. I'm kind of thinking of that, you know, but there's many situations that for many reasons it's meaningful and important to, or it just happen, that we would still like to have that sense of ourself and safety in ourselves as we bring ourselves to those things. So I'm wondering what you think about that, and what I think you've had a very recent experience with this that maybe you could tell us a bit as an example.
I'd be glad to. Yeah, yesterday I had an appointment with a surgeon in a hospital that has been very unsafe for me on multiple occasions, and yet I really need the surgery. So I figured it would probably, you know, be triggering for me because I do have medical PTSD from the abuse I endured in that hospital.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty big ticket. I got everything ready the night before, even my socks laid out and all the papers that I wanted to bring him all in order in my bag, even the, you know, bottle of water, everything ready to go, which was really good because I spent the morning so disoriented, dissociative, and anxious. I spent most of my time trying to calm my nervous system. And when I got there, I had to wait for, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes in the public waiting area. And my anxiety just, you know, started rising. I did do some Alexander practice in the car before I went in. And as soon as I got checked in, I sat down and started doing slow potato.
Which is a silly name for a very calming practice. Yes.
And I really just kept noticing, trying to just keep noticing, because when you do that, you're not focused on what might bad be going on. I'm just noticing. You're just
noticing what's happening rather than being in what's happening.
And so I know the people who were fixing the camera system and the people in the atrium and the sounds, you know, anything that I could notice helped take me out of this inner experience of anxiety. And then I noticed that my sitting practice wasn't helping me regulate well enough. And so I got up and started walking and doing the corkscrew, another
we have lots of fun names for some of the kind of little what would you call them? Mindful body intelligence exercises.
Yeah. So I was aware that, you know, the cameras were watching me and people were watching me, but I didn't care. I thought I only look kind of mildly weird. That's all right.
You should look like you're stretching. Yeah.
And it really helped me. And slowing down, like doing the practice really slow while I walked, made a big difference. And
from what I understand, moving your body is one of the best and quickest things that we can do to help. What was the word they used? Kind of stop or pause, make a pause in the stress cycle, so that you were moving and combining it with some mindful ways to also calm your nervous system.
Yeah.
I think that was
I think the shining moment was
when
I was in the session with the doctor when I realized I was like, I'm like, hey, I think I need to slow down here. And I thought, this is a new doctor. I might as well explain this to him. And so I explained a little bit about working with you and described what I was going to do. And then I did 3 movements of sweet potato. And that's all it took, because
which is a little exercise that involves moving your hands and fingers very slowly and gently. Yeah.
And I did that, and the 3rd movement, I just felt myself just like drop into, you know, my body and present. It really, because of all the training I've done, you know, over and over and over, that it's almost like Pavlov's dogs. You know, you ring the bell and I'm in my body again. And, you know, in the best situations. And because he was receptive to this, I'd already told him that I'm a trauma awareness activist and I've studied the biology of fear for years. And so he, you know, was receptive. And as I dropped into my body, he goes, wow, I felt that. I'm like, this is a very good sign for a doctor for me. And it gave him an object lesson in something that he'll be able to use.
I think it's actually also really important that you, having the capacity, having cultivated the ability to create a sense of more safety in your body, it's all relative, right? That didn't just affect you. It affected, in this case, you were with one person, it affected the doctor you were with at the time.
Yes.
And that is how it improves our interpersonal connections and relationships. And I think the noticing is key, though, because if you hadn't noticed first that you were getting more agitated, I can't remember the word you used, than was helpful in you being able to have a good conversation with him. And so that was the first thing, the noticing, but then having some things that you could do. And you have things that you could do that you wouldn't necessarily have to be so overt about and tell the other person, right? But this was a situation where I think it was brilliant that you could, and it really helped you take the time, not just sort of doing it in the background while other things were going on.
You're right. That he paused with me.
Yeah.
And witnessed that was important to me. And that's really what interpersonal neurobiology is about. My nervous system needs to see your nervous system seeing me. And he did. And that showed me he's capable of that, which is something I really need in a surgeon. Like I told him, he has to help me with my surgical issue and the medical PTSD.
Yeah.
And now he's enrolled.
It's very powerful when it's working. Well, it's working, it's happening, whether we're conscious of it or not. So if you hadn't been conscious of it, he would have still been receiving your what would you call them, interpersonal neurological signals. I don't know if that's the right term. And maybe he would be getting more agitated, and it would be this situation where it's getting more and more fraught, because neither of you are kind of recognizing it's just feeding off each other. But because you had the wherewithal to know in yourself what was going on in you, and sometimes it could be that you can see that the person you're with is getting very anxious, and it's not to stop witnessing that or being with that, but that you, if we're conscious, don't have to take that on. And you can deliberately, if you've got some skills in your tool belt, can bring yourself to a calmer state, and that can potentially help the other person. So
if they're receptive in any way.
If they're receptive, I mean, depending on what's going on and the level, but at the very least, you've got the wherewithal not to just take on everyone's stuff. You know.
And that your point about that, yes, I was able to notice and pause and change things is really important, because I think I mentioned this in our last talk, the procedure I had, excuse me, in October. I went in there, I was so dysregulated. I janked up the whole team, and the procedure went poorly. He had trouble placing the needle, and it caused me a lot of pain, and it wasn't effective. And everybody was just, after it, because I wasn't functional enough to pause and notice and bring everybody. And they didn't have the consciousness, the awareness, the experience, the understanding of the interpersonal neurobiology to go, hold on, let's pause for a minute. Things would have gone so much better.
I can't help but think, and it's sort of an aside, but wouldn't it be great if our medical and healthcare professions have the skills to be calming and their patients' nervous systems as well as their own.
Yes, I agree. I think it's a vital skill that's not just missing, it's also impinged upon by the corporatized medical system that makes doctors have 12 minutes. You get 12 minutes with your patient. That is not enough time. And then you go do a lot of computer work. You know, it's robbing, is really stealing the healing from medicine. That's why I worked so hard with my pain specialist to understand this stuff. He's a point of influence, and he works with, you know, how many countless people he'll work with in his career, and he's taking this with him. It's just so gratifying to know there's one.
There's at least one. Yes, that's fantastic. And there definitely are others. We all know that we like the doctor with the good bedside manner. Well, what is that? Probably it's probably that they're calm and they're friendly and they're interested and you know.
And interestingly too, those kind of doctors that have that are rarely sued. It's
I've
seen that are closed off and mean and unable to connect who are sued.
I'm sure I read somewhere that even if they do make a mistake, because everyone's human,
sure,
they're not sued in the same way because they've got a relationship with the patient in a different way. Yeah.
That happened after my daughter's second birth. It was very difficult. We had some pretty hairy moments there. And some people suggested that I sue the midwives. And I was like, why would I do that? I know they did the best they could for me. You know, in retrospect, we came across some things that could have been done differently and that they incorporated in their practice. And I'm satisfied with that. I mean, my daughter turned out to be fine in the end, but you know, it was a very traumatic experience. But no interest in suing these people who were so kind to me.
Yeah. It's a personal example. All right, I'm just checking. Is there anything else before we kind of finish up on this subject of safety? I have written down this idea of the sweet discomfort or that edge when you're doing something that's like maybe the doctor's visit is not quite the right example, but for instance, when you're you know, giving a talk about trauma awareness, you know, with a new group for the first time. It's very meaningful to you. It's very important. And you're human and you're probably quite nervous.
Unfortunately, I came across that concept of sweet discomfort back in the 80s from a yoga teacher. Lilias Folan talked about holding your yoga pose just to the point of sweet discomfort. And that made so much sense to me. And I've realized since then that she was really describing the growing edge. That's that edge zone is where the real growth occurs. So you are a little uncomfortable, but you're not in pain. And so that's part of how I live my life. If I can be in that sweet discomfort, I know the best things are going to come from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we feel that when things are really important to us. And if we can have some ease, we've talked about the idea of like ease warrior, because ease is not wishy-washy. It's not being in a kind of relaxed puddle on the floor.
Yes.
I guess you could be if you choose it to be, but that's not the, but it can support you doing really challenging things to stay with yourself. It's like this right? I'm frightened in some way. I mean, not in fear for your life or anything, but I'm frightened of making a fool of myself or not saying the right thing or whatever. And this is really important, and having some tools to not just go on stage and say it as fast as possible and get it over with, you know, that you can really be there. And so
Yeah, and that ability. I mean, think about the difference between what you just described. Get on stage and hurry up and say it and get off stage. Is a whole different experience than connecting with the audience. The first time I did that, I was amazed. They like laughed when I thought they would laugh, and they cried when I thought they would cry, and they were with me, and it was such a beautiful experience. And if I'm blah blah blah, I don't get into that, and they don't either. They're like, whoa,
because they're even though we're feeling afraid inside in some way, we want to create that good interpersonal neurobiology with our audience, whether that's the one person we've got the appointment with, or you're on stage talking to a lot of people. But and that ability to notice and calm yourself internally while doing something that might be quite kind of passionate and outgoing or vigorous or physically active,
and that's one of the principles that we've been exploring that I just find so fascinating. Like if I can hammer that nail with ease, that's just so much better for my system and actually for my accuracy with the hammer.
So it'd be like, instead of all the energy and effort going into this, it's like it coming from your whole self. I don't know if that was a very good modeling of it, but anyway.
Because you're not putting the energy in the tension. In unnecessary tension.
Yeah, absolutely. You have learned well, my dear. Before we finish, if you're interested in this, and I see a few people have been watching with us live, if you're interested in this subject, I also had a conversation with a very good friend of mine who's a psychotherapist, Miriam Grace, in the UK, and we talked about the idea of safe uncertainty, and we kind of considered the question of, is safety achieved through the body and the mind? And there's some similarities, as you might imagine, between these two conversations, but coming from some different perspectives. So
I thought that was a really interesting discussion. Thank you.
What would you like to leave our audience with, Shay? What would be a good takeaway for them?
Well, I think I'd especially like to say to people who don't have much of a sense of safety, you need to go very slowly. As I described, for me, it was dangerous to even relax enough to notice ease. And if you haven't had that, it's going to be a lot of hard work, and it's going to be very beneficial. So little bits over time, drip, drip, drip. That's the way to do it. And
I want to say that is kind of integral to my approach.
Yes.
Is that it's not expecting this big, it's these like tiny little drops, little whispers, little nudges, and practice to keep you moving in the direction.
And that's how you rewire a nervous system. That's why I love this work with you. It's very gentle. It's non-coercive. It's not scary most of the time. Sweet discomfort's there.
It's not me that's scary though, right?
There was that one time. We will not talk about it. And it's neurobiologically sound work. So it's like, for me, it's a perfect marriage. Aw.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it's so wonderful working with you, and I'm just amazed at how you're doing with it, how you understand and using it, and how you're taking it into some really difficult and important things, and how it's supporting you in that.
And I really appreciate that. I don't know how I would get by otherwise. So I would say just notice something in your body, one little thing, and then sign up for our class.
Yes, Shay and I are planning to collaborate on an online class, especially for people dealing with trauma, and it will be sometime later in the year. So we'll keep you posted if that is of interest to you. get on my email list. I've got actually talking about the little drips. I've got a nice little 7 tips to reduce stress now, and these are like little in the moment ideas. So little drops. So you get that when you sign up, and
You
you
get
can
lots
just
of
find.
goodies when you sign up with Imogen.
Yeah, yes. You can find that on my website, imogenregone.com. I'll put that in the information. And I will be hopping over very shortly to my free Facebook group, the Body Intelligence Community, to do my regular Thursday power pause, which is a just very short 3 or 4 minutes guided. You might call it a meditation, but it's just really guiding some of the ideas I use in my work that you can just simply listen to and receive. And I think the vast majority of people find it's a very calming to their nervous system. You'll get a few ideas for little ways to drip.
I'd like to say those are also really good on the replay.
Yeah.
There are times when I've gone, I'm going to watch one of these every day and just go back through, scroll through. And
yeah, they're all there from, I've been doing it, I don't know, a couple of years now, most Thursdays. So, yeah.
May I say, if you want to follow my stuff, just look for Trauma Aware America.
I was just about to say, yes. So Shay's got a Facebook page, Trauma Aware America, or hashtag Trauma Aware America. You'll get her posts. So very important stuff. Thank you so much, Shay.
Thank you. And it's lovely as always.